Let me ask you a question. Are you honestly relying on QuickBooks to tell you how your farm operation is doing financially? If you answered yes to that, then the reality is you're probably feeling lost, confused, and honestly a little bit frustrated with that type of system. It may be because you don't trust the numbers, they're stressing you out because they don't make sense, and you have no idea how to use the numbers in that type of format to actually drive financial decisions and what you should be doing going forward inside of your operation. Inside of today's video, I'm going to help you understand why QuickBooks just isn't enough when it comes to building and running a successful farm operation. And more importantly than that, what type of system you actually need to have in place to feel confidence when it comes to making big financial decisions inside of your operation. So let's get to it. So the first thing you need to understand here is QuickBooks, yes, it's important, but it's important only for one side of your operation, and that is for tax planning purposes. Now, I'm not saying that tax planning isn't important. It's an extremely important part of the overall function of the finances inside of your farm operation. We talk about it inside of Legacy Farmer all the time about how tax planning should be a proactive thing that you're doing at the end of the year, not reactive, which is how 99% of farm operations run their business today. And QuickBooks is going to help fill that gap there. But the thing here though is that you can't look at your profit and loss from QuickBooks, for example, and know exactly how your operation did for the year. And the reason for that is because those numbers, you can manipulate them, right? You can manipulate them by prepaying expenses before the end of the year. You can manipulate your income by carrying over grain checks into the new year. You can do all these things to just manipulate those numbers, which is why tax planners want them, because then it gives you the ability to show or not show a certain amount of income on your IRS tax forms that you put together at the end of the year. And obviously, minimizing your tax bill is a huge strategy for business owners like you and me, and we have to be aware of these things. But again, though, a lot of people inside the industry have the wrong view on what QuickBooks is actually doing for their operation. It's preparing you for minimizing that tax bill or being a proactive tax planner at the end of the year, which is great. But the difference is though, and where the problem lies is when you look at your reports, aka your P&L from QuickBooks, and look at that and use that to judge the overall success or failure of your operation for that year. The numbers aren't structured in the way they're supposed to be to actually tell you how you're truly doing inside of your operation for the year. And that's the first thing that we have to solve here inside of this problem. Because if you're not looking at numbers structured in the right way, it's a guarantee that you are going to make costly financial decisions there because you're making it based off of manipulated numbers or numbers that are just showing one piece of the puzzle here when it comes to the overall financial health of your operation and not giving you all the information you need to make sound business decisions. It's a guarantee that not having the information structured in the way that you need and using QuickBooks reports in order to drive big financial decisions, it's costing you a lot of time, energy, money, and stress. So if you're sitting there right now and you're wondering, why do these numbers never add up the way that I thought they should be after going through an experience in the year that I experienced? Or why does it feel like I'm constantly missing something every time I look at my reports coming out of QuickBooks? Well, you're about to find out why that's happening, and it's not what you think. Now, let's say you run a massive operation inside of this country and you're in the top 1% of farmers from a revenue standpoint. The odds are you most likely have a CFO or in-house accountant on your staff. Now, somebody like that, they may love using QuickBooks, but the truth is when they are translating that information or those numbers to you as the CEO, they may know how to translate them in a way to where it makes business sense to you in order to drive the big decisions that you are making running the day-to-day operation. But for the other 99% of farmers and ranchers and ag business owners out there, they don't have an in-house CFO or accountant, which means they need to have the numbers structured in a different way. And what do I mean by that? Well, in the first part of our problem here that we were talking about how QuickBooks looks at and views your numbers from the accountant's point of view, right? And what we need to look at are what are the incentives of those reports from the accountant's point of view is we want to structure and manipulate these reports to minimize taxable income as much as we possibly can. But the reality is when you manipulate those numbers, is that really a true gauge for what's going on inside of your business? And this is where we have to bring in the two other points of view here when it comes to structuring your numbers in a way that are going to actually help you drive decisions. Because as a business owner, you need to understand your numbers from three different points of view here. Point one was from the accountant's view. We've already covered that. But point two and three, number two is going to be from your banker's point of view and seeing the numbers structured in the way that the bank likes to look at them when they're making interest rate decisions or new loan approvals or anything like that. You have to understand how the bank's looking at your numbers. But then point three is going to be from the business owner's perspective and really understanding and looking at your numbers and being able to tell how they're working when it comes to making daily financial decisions inside the operation. For example, knowing what your operating line of credit is going to be day after day or week after week or month after month there, so you don't get yourself into a problem when it comes to paying bills or paying your team or anything like that. But most most people, they don't look at things that way. We have been taught, trained, and conditioned inside of a lot of industries, but especially ag, that if we just look at our QuickBooks reports, it tells us the information and shows us the information in a way that, one, our accountant wants to see, but also two, our banker wants to see and our business owner wants to see. And that is where this massive problem starts to pop up, because those numbers are manipulated. And what I mean by that is the numbers that your banker's looking at are the numbers that a business owner should be looking at. They're structured in more truth and can't be manipulated like they can inside of QuickBooks. And as a business owner, it is your responsibility to understand all three frames of view there and understand how the accountant's looking at your numbers, how your banker's looking at your numbers, and how you as the business owner should be looking at the numbers as well. So let's jump over and let's talk about your banker and how they're looking at your numbers. When a banker looks at your finances inside of your operation, most of them you take in your balance sheet or maybe your annual cash flow, but then they're putting it into their system because they're looking for two key things there. One, they're looking to see if you have assets that they can take as collateral to actually make the loans to you that you may be requesting for your operation. The second piece here is they're looking at your cash flow to see if you actually have the cash flow available to make those loan payments back, and also to what that operating line of credit balance is going to be throughout the year, right? QuickBooks doesn't tell us any of that information. It is not going to show us. Being able to cash flow a payment in QuickBooks is completely different from putting together a monthly cash flow projection the way that we do inside of Farmer Metrics and the way that your banker is going to want to see it, because QuickBooks doesn't give you the ability to see how this payment is going to impact your operating line of credit, or when this income comes in, how's it going to impact your operating line of credit then, or whatever it may be, right? There's a lot of different scenarios there that we can look at there. But some other key points here as to why you need to understand how the bank is actually using those numbers and using them to make decisions inside your operation is it's going to give you a good gauge and understanding of what your relationship is like with the bank. And what I mean by that is, do you have leverage on your bank? And really what we're looking at there is when you understand how the bank's looking at your numbers and how they're structuring them and positioning them, it gives you the leverage to be able to negotiate interest rates, right? And we've seen this time and time again. We've had hundreds of customers come into Legacy Farmer that didn't even know that they could negotiate interest rates, but when they have the numbers packaged and positioned in the right way, it gives them all the information they need to walk into the bank's office and hold all the cards inside of that conversation, and just gives them the leverage to make sure they're getting a percent and a half better than every other customer inside of the bank. We have seen this happen time and time and time again, resulting in tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest savings for our customers. And that is so vitally important that, again, you as the business owner, yes, we need to understand QuickBooks. We need to understand how our accountant is looking at the numbers, but man, you are losing tens of thousands of dollars every single year by not understanding how your banker is using that information to make decisions on your operation as well. Now, the next piece here, again, looking from the banker's point of view here, is let's say you want to buy a new piece of ground. Well, you need to know enough, again, how the bank's going to look at your numbers and how they're structuring them to know how that big financial decision is going to impact your relationship with the bank. Will they be happy about it? Are you putting yourself into a higher risk profile with them by doing this? How are they going to respond to this, right? And the thing is most people, they operate from this place of when they want to buy something, they operate from this place of, well, let me go check with my banker. Well, the way that it should be done, in my opinion, the way that our customers do it using Farmer Metrics is they already know the entire game plan and what the bank's going to say before they even call them or walk in for the meeting and to talk about the proposed loan that they want to receive. It's just a completely different dynamic when you're walking into that office presenting an opportunity to the bank versus asking them for money when you haven't went through and thought through all the possible scenarios here and really thought through how the bank is going to interpret this loan request that you have here. It just changes the game when you're structured, you're organized, you know what the heck the bank is looking at, and you know how to use leverage in your favor to make sure that you're, one, considering everything that they're looking at, but two, how can you get the best interest rate on this, right? And making sure that you're getting a top tier interest rate compared to every other customer inside of that bank. Now, the next point of view here that you need to master is looking at your numbers as a business owner would, right? And as a business owner, we need to understand the finances from the accountant standpoint, from the banker standpoint, but especially from the business owner standpoint, and how we're going to manage and operate that business on a daily basis, because cash is going in, cash is going out. As a business owner, I need to know what my operating line of credit is going to be at the end of this month. I need to know what my projected operating line of credit is going to be 6 months from now. I need to know what happens if we have an unexpected $250,000 repair bill coming up 6 months from now and how that impacts the operating line of credit when we're in the middle of harvest. There's all these possible scenarios here that start playing out. And this is what happens when you have structure and organization inside of your operation. You're able to actually predict and plan for problems that may or may not appear in the future. Again, think about how you look stepping into your bank with this level of structure and organization and actually having a game plan put in place. And again, it's just crazy that we live in this world, but just by simply doing what I just said right there and being able to predict and show what your game plan is for for these possible scenarios that come up in the future, you're already putting yourself in the top 1% of business owners in this country. It's a guarantee at this point with me. We've worked with hundreds of family farm operations, talked to thousands of them, and this one thing will put you above and beyond everybody else, that every other customer that the bank works with, and give you the leverage to negotiate interest rates and make sure you're always getting the absolute best interest rate that that bank can offer. And so as a business owner, this is just more critical information that you need to understand. And guys, this is exactly what we've built our software inside of Legacy Farmer called Farmer Metrics to do. We've built this strategically and slowly over the years with our customers, making sure that every tool, every resource, every page in there and how we're looking at the numbers helps us from an accountant standpoint, helps us from a banker standpoint, and especially helps us from a business owner standpoint. But if you don't have access to a system or tool like this, and you're just relying on your numbers from QuickBooks, I can guarantee you are losing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Some of you, it's going to be millions of dollars over a certain amount of years there, because you just don't have the vantage point or the viewpoint on your numbers that you should. You're only looking at one piece of the puzzle here versus all the pieces put together, giving you a comprehensive view so you actually know what the heck is going on inside of your business financially. The final piece here is to actually get your businesses structured. And what I mean is you start separating out your sources of income. So a majority of the customers that come into Legacy Farmer, they may have livestock, they got a farm operation, and then maybe have some custom service business. And what we'll do is help them separate out and structure all these businesses individually so they can look at each individual business with the point of view from the accountant, the banker, and the business owner. And it just drastically changes how people are making decisions for each individual business. It's showing where people are making money and losing money, and where you as a business owner should honestly be spending a majority of your time. And a lot of people, just saying the truth out loud here, they've been spending a majority of their time on the one business inside of their entire ecosystem that's costing them the most time and the most money there long term. Versus if we get the numbers structured and organized, now we're driving our decisions based off of data, not just our emotions and how we feel maybe about the farm operation, when the custom service business should be where all of our focus should be going. I'm just using that as an example there. But just that level of clarity is what happens when you're able to look at your numbers from all the different viewpoints that we talked about, but then have the structure and organization within separating your businesses there. It just changes the game drastically, guys. And we've seen this again with hundreds of customers coming into Legacy Farmer over the years. So at the end of the day, if you are somebody that's watched this video and you understand all the painful problems here that I've talked about, and you have experienced them and went through them, but you're finally at a place that you're ready to do something about them, guys, this is exactly what we've built Farmer Metrics for with our customers inside of Legacy Farmer. We have strategically and methodically added only valuable pieces to the software that are going to actually help people really understand their numbers and help them build their strategy and their game plan going forward. QuickBooks can tell you what's happened in the past. Farmer Metrics is built to, one, yeah, it'll do that, right? But it's more positioned for, hey, this is what we do going forward into the future. It helps you make those decisions, make those game plans, and really finalize those tough financial decisions of what you want to do going forward inside of the operation. So one is past, ours is the future. And that is the number one thing that we've always tried to stick to in building out all the features that we have with our customers inside of Farmer Metrics. So at the end of the day, inside of today's ag industry, the numbers keep getting bigger and bigger. I think we can all relate to that, understand that, and accept that. But the reality is that means the risk is getting bigger and bigger as well. So today you have an opportunity to where you can continue dealing with the painful reality that you're currently living in, or you can take the first steps to start solving the issue. Because if you don't, you're going to continue feeling this pain over and over year after year.